Greetings, and welcome to the Kitchen of the Sassy Pig. My name is Scott Cooper, and today we're going to learn how to smoke a pork shoulder in order to make North Carolina pulled pork barbecue. Now, smoking a pork shoulder takes some planning. We're going to start the night before, and we're going to do three things. First, we're going to inject and dry rub our pork. Then we're going to make our barbecue sauce, and then we're going to make our coleslaw as well. On day two, when we're ready to smoke, we're going to put the pork shoulder on the smoke for about 6 hours. We're going to pull it off and then put it in the oven, covered tightly with tin foil at 250 degrees for additional approximately 2.5 hours, until the temperature gets up to about 205 degrees. When you take it out of the oven, drain off the excess liquid, and the pork at that point in time will just fall apart. Now, not everybody likes North Carolina pulled pork barbecue. My son, in fact, likes more of a Western style, traditional, with his favorite barbecue sauce. So always separate out the pork shoulder at that point in time, put some aside for him, add his favorite barbecue sauce, throw in the crock pot for a couple minutes, and he's good to go. So as that is an introduction, let's smoke. So here we have our pork shoulder. These are already been deboned. They're about 8 pounds a piece. You can buy bone-in pork shoulders at a local grocery store like Wegmans for about $1.29 a pound. So now we're getting ready to make our injection solution, and then we're going to inject these pork shoulders. So now we're ready to prepare our injection mixture. The injection mixture really does three things for a pork shoulder. First, it helps to tenderize the pork shoulder. Second, gives it some additional flavor. And lastly, but just as important, it adds some additional moisture into the pork shoulder, so when you're smoking it for 6 hours, it comes out nice, moist, and tender. So here we go. We're going to start with 3/4 cup of apple juice. Sometimes in the winter I actually use apple cider. A half a cup of water. A half a cup of white sugar. A 1/4 cup of kosher salt. And 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire. Use a whisk, mix it up till all the sugar and salt are dissolved, and now we're ready to inject our pork shoulder. So the ingredients in the injection solution will help tenderize and flavor the meat and keep it moist. You need an injection needle, which you can get at any cooking store or even a grocery store. And you're going to place this needle about 1 inch apart with your injection mixture, and I'll show you how to do that. Be careful, it does squirt. You'll notice that I have these resting on a cookie sheet, just in case we have some spillage from our injection solution. So just keep putting these in about 1 inch apart until you have the whole shoulder covered. See that little squirt there? So now we're ready to make our dry rub. Our dry rub is going to start with 1 tablespoon of sugar, a half a tablespoon of brown sugar, 2 teaspoons of garlic salt, 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, 1 teaspoon of chili powder, 2 tablespoons of paprika. We're going to add in a half teaspoon of cayenne, a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin, and a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. You can just mix this up with your hand. You could use a whisk. Once it's all well mixed together, now we're ready to rub our shoulder. So now we're ready for the dry rub. You start with good old-fashioned Heinz mustard. Helps the dry rub to adhere and even dissolve partly into the pork shoulder. Put on a generous portion. Rub it in. Make sure you get both sides. And then we're going to apply our dry rub. Give you a close-up shot here of rubbing in the mustard and applying the dry rub. And as you notice, this does get a little messy. Having it on a cookie sheet helps. Keeps from all the dry rub and the mustard getting on the table and reduces your cleanup afterwards. So there we go. We're ready to seal these and put them in the refrigerator until we're ready to smoke. The next step will be making our North Carolina barbecue sauce. So now we're ready to make our North Carolina barbecue sauce. You start with 2 cups of apple cider vinegar, add in 4 tablespoons of ketchup, add in 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 4 teaspoons of kosher salt, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, and now we add some spice. The traditional method is to add 1 teaspoon of crushed red pepper, as well as 1 teaspoon of hot sauce. If you don't want your barbecue sauce to be too spicy, just go ahead and add a single teaspoon of crushed red pepper. I like mine a little extra spicy, so go ahead and add 1 teaspoon of chipotle pepper. If I'm really going to spice it up, I might even add a teaspoon of cayenne. But you need to have a crowd that really likes hot barbecue sauce. We're just going to whisk this up and let it sit in the refrigerator overnight till we're done smoking our pork shoulder. All right then, our pork shoulder's been sitting in the fridge overnight, and now we're getting ready to smoke. The first thing we want to do is take the pork shoulder out of the refrigerator and let it sit for at least an hour and a half to 2 hours to try and get it up near room temperature. If you put cold pork shoulder into a smoker, it's going to really drop the temperature of the smoker pretty quick, and it'll take habit maintaining that temperature. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to prepare our wood chips. Now today I'll be using Jack Daniel's wood chips, which are made of oak, but they've been sitting in bourbon for a long time, so they got a nice little flavor. And I'm using a smaller version of those. And I'm also using hickory chunks. Traditional pork barbecue uses hickory. You'll probably end up smoking your pork shoulder for approximately 3 to 4 hours. We're going to leave it in the smoker at 225 degrees for a total of 6 hours before we take it out. If you're using smaller wood chips, go ahead and put them in water. Let them soak for 35, 40 minutes, even an hour prior to put them into your smoker. In addition, I'll be using chunks of hickory. Hickory has a great flavor when you're doing it on a pork shoulder. And the little wood chips will fire up and start burning these, and it'll have a good long smoke. As you can see, I do use 2 smokers. My first smoker was a Smoke Vault by Camp Chef. Great little smoker. It has 5 internal trays, about 24 inches wide. My new one is the Masterbuilt, which I got from Outdoor World. It's 44 inches wide, 4 trays, and right now I have about 60 pounds of pork shoulder smoking in the Masterbuilt. As you can see, I'm actually smoking 8 pork shoulders at this point in time, but now they're ready to come off the smoke and be put into a pan and put into the oven. Now that we've taken the pork shoulder off the smoker, I put it into this high-walled roasting pan. We're going to put it in the oven at 250 degrees, wrapped in tin foil, for about 2.5 hours until it reaches an internal temperature of 205 degrees. Now the reason why I foil wrap it, it reduces the cooking time. I've smoked the pork shoulder 14 to 16 hours to get to 205. I foil wrapped it. I cannot tell the difference. I'd rather use the speedier approach. So here's a close-up of the pork shoulder. Now, notice the sides of my pan are pretty large. That's because this is going to release additional liquid. So use a high-walled pan for your 2.5 hours in the oven. Okay, we're all foil wrapped, so into the oven it goes. So from the time we started the smoke, it's been about 9 hours. I'm about ready to pull the pork out of the oven. It's about 203 degrees. It'll be 205 in a few minutes. And then we're going to do a close-up on how I pull the pork. So now we're ready to pull our pork. First I want to show a couple things. When you put your thermometer in, it's like a hot knife in butter. It just slides right in. It's a good indication that your pork is done in addition to the temperature that you're looking for. I'm using heat-resistant gloves because this puppy's hot. But watch. Look how it falls apart. It just literally falls apart. So I'm going to mince this up. Anything I don't want to put in my mouth is not going into my pork barbecue. So that's the basic rule of thumb. If you don't want to eat it, don't leave it in the pan. So the pork barbecue has been pulled. Notice I use smaller chunks. I don't have great big chunks in my pork barbecue. I'm not going to say it's minced, but it's certainly just very small chunks. I'm going to add a cup of the barbecue sauce, North Carolina barbecue sauce we made last night. Mix that all together. And then we're ready to eat. The beauty of pork barbecue is that you can eat this right now. You could cover it with tinfoil and eat it tomorrow, or you could freeze it and eat it next week or 2 weeks from now. Pork is a very flexible meat. It heats up extremely well. It will have the same flavor and same characteristics from the day you made it. I hope you have the opportunity to go ahead and make your own pork barbecue real soon. Follow these step-by-step instructions and I will guarantee you will have a great pork barbecue. So for now, I am Scott Cooper, and thank you for visiting the kitchen of the Sassy Pig.